All right, everyone, welcome on into Out and About episode number 55. We have a very special guest with us today. We have Will Compton of Bussin' with the Boys. He's relatively new to the Barstool family, and we're here today to talk about why the fuck there are no gay players in the NFL. Will is not gay, but Will's an ally. We were sitting down at my desk. We were talking about this a little bit with Gaz, and I was like, this would be great to just fucking record for Pride Month, because I've talked to past players about this. I've talked to hopeful future players about this, but I haven't talked to a current player who really has his pulse on like the culture of the NFL now. Like, you're 31 years old, I'm 31 years old. Obviously, two very different lives, but you're in the NFL, so I think you have a better insight than some of the old heads that I talked to about this. So I just wanted to get your opinion right off the bat. Why are there no gay out players in the NFL, Will Compton? It's a loaded question.
You say gay out players meaning like they're out.
Yeah, okay.
Because
So you're talking about,
I would say that there definitely are.
Yeah.
I would just assume just the way the ego is in the NFL. Like you're in one of the most, you're in a very masculine environment. Like when did you come out?
22.
22 years old.
Right.
So let's say you were a competitive athlete. Like, let's say you playing college ball. You get drafted at 22. You go into a new locker room.
Right.
I know the anxieties and pressures and nerves you feel just going into another locker room full of grown men. You got families. Like, you just got.
But what does that mean, egos? What does that mean, the egos in there? What does ego have to do with that?
Well, you identify with playing football. You
Correct.
identify with wanting to be a successful athlete. And you're just wrapped up in your own world, in your mind, about the way life needs to be going for you.
Right.
Because it's all centric around you. That's the way everyone usually thinks, right?
Right.
Everyone, has that ego about them. And when you grow up in a masculine environment, which I'm sure you did,
Right.
because you finally had the courage to come out and do it.
Right.
But all the anxieties and stuff that you had when you came out, I'm only assuming that it is magnified when you're in an environment surrounded by, a very masculine,
Right.
straight man that you think is happening. So if you were to be the first NFL player that comes out, you just don't know if you're ready for that kind of attention.
It's funny you mentioned the attention. We talked about Michael Sam a little bit. He was the last guy who was out in the NFL, really the only guy. And you mentioned something about him leveraging his sexuality to have a spot on the team. Do you think that if a player were to come out now, owners would be accepting to it, or it would still be seen as a distraction if a player were to come out, or they'd feel guilted into keeping them on a team? Because it's different wherever you go, right?
No doubt.
Owners in the Northeast are going to treat this different than owners in, wherever the fuck down south. So
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting. You said leveraging your sexuality for a place
Yeah,
on the
I
team.
mean, that's speculation. That's me.
But it
That's
makes-
hearsay. That's
yeah.
hearsay. Because he wasn't drafted, he felt like he should have been drafted, or maybe he was drafted in the 7th round. He thought he should have been drafted
Right.
higher because he was the SEC Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah.
But anybody I've talked to that played with him talked about, he was given a fair shake, and he kind of went about it that he knew he had that card in his back pocket.
Right.
So he knew if he got cut, he could lean into that. I mean, you could just see it. Do you remember when he got drafted?
Vaguely. What was it, 2000
something like that. No, because it was after me, so it might have been 2000 and
When were you?
I was 13.
Yeah.
I think he was either 2000 before that. Either way, he makes out with his boiefriend, right? National television. He gets drafted.
It's a ballsy move.
He
That's
just
a
makes
ballsy
out.
move.
I'm talking hardcore. Makes
Yeah.
out with this little white dude, right?
Just a little white twin.
And
We'll get you in with the terms, little white
and
twin.
I just knowing the oh shit,
Yeah.
what went on in my head being a straight dude
Yeah.
and not being used to seeing stuff like that.
Right. And you're from Nebraska.
I grew up in Missouri.
You grew up
Yeah.
in Missouri,
Yeah.
went to Nebraska. And
Correct.
that's where a lot of these football guys come from, is not from, Northeast. You hate to use the term coastal elites, right?
Yeah.
But it's there are different ways of thinking in different parts of the country. And if
No
you,
question.
And if you have these corn-fed, big boys from the middle of wherever the hell they are coming out, and then you got this guy who's very comfortable with himself making out with people on TV, that's going to be a turnoff, I would assume.
Right, and then just being in the football culture and seeing that probably on television,
Right.
you can only assume what initial thoughts were. I wonder what he's going to be like. And,
Right.
You hear all the jokes and everything like that. When you're in a locker room or you're around a lot of the dudes and you're bantering and stuff like that. I can only assume what a gay dude might feel sitting there thinking, should I come out or not?
Right.
You know what I mean? Just not like it's some toxic environment, but just it's an environment to where you just don't know if you would feel accepted or comfortable. If you don't feel accepted and comfortable, you're less likely to do that courageous thing for the sake of just being courageous.
Right.
You've talked about, and I would like to hear your perspective, because you were kind of breaking it down for me, the fear once you get on the other side of it and how relieving it is.
Yeah, it's funny. Like we were talking about this before the show, and actually before I get into that, you mentioned like the toxic. Like I hate the word toxic. I just think it's such a fucking cop out. And I remember Willie Colon, who I hosted Barstool Breakfast with, said that football players get such a bad rap because it's such a masculine like environment. Everyone assumes they're these big dumb guys, and they won't be able to handle right, and they won't be able to handle things. Like, now give these guys the benefit of the doubt. I think more often than not, football players, right? It's 2021, right? Do people actually fucking care? But to get back to what you were saying with the fear of it all, like, I don't use fear as an excuse, right? Like, I don't consider fear to be an excuse to do anything anymore. And that's a key distinction, anymore. But my point, and I took some flack from this from my people, was that if you're in a position to come out with a large platform, if you have all this money coming out to you, if you're signed on a team, is being temporarily uncomfortable a risk that you're willing to take in order for like long-term gain? So like, in other words, yeah, like I might be uncomfortable. I might be like, this might feel weird for me, but knowing on the other side, like you're seeing all these kids that are looking up to you, like you're living your truth, corny to say, but it's true. Like, is it worth it to just say, fuck it? Like, people, they're going to be haters. Like, people are going to be yelling at me in the stand. Like, yeah, I might get called a faggot. I might get called this and that. But like, that's not nothing that has happened before. And like, on the other end of it, it's like, can you just like, can professional athletes, like you're these big, strong people, can you just suck it the fuck up, dude? Like, come out. You've spent your whole life like building up. This is where I'll get in trouble, but I don't even care. Like, you spent your whole life building up like this big physicality, like this big bravado, this big ego, but you can't come out and like just be yourself. Like, you're that much of a pussy. You're this big, strong guy on the field, but you can't come out and be yourself. You know it's not. You know it's going to help people. Like, put other people first before yourself. And maybe it's not that big, right? Maybe I'm just getting emotional about it, but that's an opinion that I've always had, and it's one that I think is becoming a little more popular.
Yeah, and my response when we were talking before that, I was like, you have that clarity now that you're on the other side of it. But beforehand, my question to you was like, were you scared and nervous and had anxiety coming out?
Yeah.
And you can only assume that that's what those guys are going through. I agree. Like, when you're speaking to the person, I wouldn't even say put everyone else like that. That's a part of it and a benefit that'll happen, a domino effect. But like, even for your own self, like, put yourself first instead of you're putting the wrong group in front of the other group, when really you're not even getting to the bottom of why you might not want to come out, or why you might not want to, speak your truth, or, just let the world know, or just for yourself. Like, at the end of the day, the thing that's holding you back is the perception and these ideas of what might happen to you. When, like you said, it wasn't even like that once it finally happened. Like, you're coming out, like, yeah, I'm sure you experienced some certain things that you weren't ready for.
Yeah.
But your fear was now like, why did I not do this sooner? I would assume, because that's usually what happens when you get to the other side of fear. But just for that person, like, yeah, big, toxic, strong, like ego, stuff like that. Like, dude, locker rooms are awesome.
Talk to me about that, locker rooms, because I was talking with Gaz about this before, and he's like, I got so many questions about the locker room. Like, a locker room culture, I feel more than anything, is goofy, right?
Oh,
it's just guys being like, it's just guys being dudes.
Yeah,
it's not scary. It's not this big, daunting thing. It's just guys fucking around.
Yeah, I mean, it's, for the most part, all of us as human beings are the same. Like, we all think insecurities. We all think, vulnerabilities. Like, until you realize that people think the same way you do and feel certain vulnerabilities and insecurities that you do. And then you start becoming comfortable. Then you start bantering. You joke around.
Right.
Like, a locker room is just a melting pot of all of these different cultures, right?
Yep.
Like me, I grew up in Missouri. And I grew up in a small town in Missouri. Closest city was an hour away, a little over an hour away in St. Louis. Surrounded by small towns, closest airport over, out in St. Louis. So I essentially was in a bubble my entire life, surrounded by small town Missouri people, right?
Yep.
So you go to Nebraska, which I've learned now, like Nebraska's looked at it's like some small town state or something like that. But to me, Lincoln was overwhelming. Like that locker room was overwhelming because you're meeting people from Texas, California. You're meeting all these different people, and you learn about all these different cultures. To where, it's a little different and uncomfortable at first because an easy way to communicate is like labeling somebody like, oh, he's just a white boy.
Lowest common denominator.
He probably did this in Missouri, and you might feel uncomfortable for a second, and then you realize like you're joking and everyone's just trying to figure out the way to communicate with each other.
Right.
But then you start learning the empathy with everybody, social awareness, social competence, like all these relationships that you're kind of building. And then you go to DC, which is way different from Nebraska.
Right.
Another melting pot of a lot of different people, different cultures, different walks of life. And you just realize like you don't know what you don't know. And anything new to anybody is uncomfortable at first.
Right.
Whether you defend it with negativity or something else, like it's just that person acting out of their own insecurities anyway. So somebody who's going through thinking about coming out and how it pisses you off, and like you just like, hey, you should have all of this clarity now that you're on the other side of it. It's hard to put that in perspective for somebody who is in an environment that they perceive as this huge toxic masculine.
Right.
But really in the same breath, everyone is just as insecure as you are about things.
Right.
It just shows differently because, a majority acts like this and does that. But I would assume that that's what those guys battle with if they don't come out. And so it's kind of hard to get out of your own way in that sense.
That's well put. You're 31. Are you, for your position, your linebacker, are you considered old in the NFL?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Some people are like, how old are you? I'm like, 31. Which just they'll be like, yo, like, you're young as shit.
So in that vein, you're 31. Say you got a 22-year-old linebacker coming in. Do you think his perceptions of gay people are going to be different from a 31-year-old just because of how that age different? 10 years is a big difference, right?
Yeah.
A lot has happened.
Well, you said earlier it's 2021 now.
Right.
So I'm sure, like, I'm not 10 years younger, but I can assume that there's a little more, open-mindedness and stuff like that being a 22-year-old. I know how I felt coming into a locker room, and it don't matter what I had going on, whether it was something that wasn't common or was super common. It's not like I'm talking about a lot because I want to make the team, and I don't want anything to hinder me making the team.
You want to put your head down and work.
Right, because again, I'm labeling as like I need to be an NFL player. No matter what's going on with me or anything like that, you suppress it because you want to make the team.
So then then that goes back to like the suppression at all. Sexuality doesn't really have a place in the NFL. So I can understand, like, because you said you're there to work, you're there to do a job. So I can understand, to be on like the other side of the coin here, how that would make people feel uncomfortable if someone like Michael Sam is coming in, be like, I'm this big gay guy, I'm fucking kissing people, blah, blah, blah. And then that would then turn people off just from a workplace standpoint, right? You don't bring your fiance around and start making out with her in the locker room.
Right.
So why should he be doing that?
Right.
So it's interesting to think about from all different sides. And I think the point that you hit the most, that stuck with me the most, was saying you have the clarity now. Right?
Yeah, because you're different. You're just different when as you age. Like you just gain more wisdom. You just gain more perspective on what life is about. And when you're younger, like your brain isn't even fully developed and matured until your later 20s.
Right.
So coming from college, like those environments, all this stuff to where you're just an insecure kid, man.
Right.
And you just don't know how to act. Like even another extreme, right? Like Christianity, when somebody's like a super Christian, like I can observe and see those guys. It's not like they want to force or do anything that they're doing into the locker room and everything else. So you kind of find maybe a small group who does it, and you do Bible studies and stuff like that. But there's a part of you even then that's like, you don't want to, you think of this environment as like, I'm going to get made fun of. Like, I feel like it's just that way. Like everyone just has their insecurities. It just speaks against more so now, not now, obviously the world's grown and stuff like that, but the way, how far it's come, just the gay pride and everything else.
Do you think there's most...
Like you're talking to a small town Missouri guy.
Yeah, I was actually...
Like, I'm not. If people might listen, they think, oh, this dude sucks, or this dude's saying good stuff. But I am not the same dude 10 years ago that I am now, especially with this perspective. I didn't have hate, but it's just not something that is in your head or has been in front of you that much of your life. Right. So when it's different, you just see it differently. And it's like, I know friends I hung out with, so it's like, oh, I can't think that's cool.
Right.
Because in your mind, you're just so stuck in what you feel people might think about you.
Right.
Other than actually breaking down why you're thinking the way you're thinking, why you feel the way you feel, what place is it actually coming from? Is it an actual self thing, or is it motivated by other people that are affecting your environment?
Right.
So there's so many different things. Like, I was way different back then.
Did you grow up in a mostly like white town?
Oh,
small
99% white.
So it was probably strange for you going into the NFL, being surrounded by all these black dudes.
Yes,
and everything.
absolutely, 100%.
So that was a learning experience, and I would assume, obviously, like the NFL is like that, mostly white guys, mostly black guys. It's like gay is not really something you can put your finger on. But if, like you're saying, the locker room is a melting pot and a largely accepting place, then just like black, just like white, just like, you know, Asian, whatever has a place in there, then gay will also be able to eventually, I would assume, find a place in there, because you have guys like you who are, you know, small town Missouri kids. You have guys like Willie Colon from the Bronx,
Yeah, no doubt.
who's, believe it or not, one of my best friends. I'm going to his house on Saturday, and it just all goes back to the point that you said, where it's all about perspective, it's all about growth. And even though, you know, I may be a little frustrated with the rate that things are going on, that's because I now have the perspective and I now have the wisdom that I didn't have 10 years ago, that maybe you didn't have 10 years ago. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's fascinating. I'm glad I got to talk to someone who's like has their finger on the pulse of what that locker room is like, because I feel like football players a lot of time, and any athletes, get a bad rap when in reality it's just like the media.
Oh,
like,
yeah, no
twisted.
question.
Oh, there could never be a gay man in the NFL.
Yeah.
How are you
Yeah.
kidding me?
And the media is bigger now, obviously,
Right.
more than ever, with
Yeah.
everybody trying to have the fastest take, the most clicks. Like, what's
course.
going to bring eyes this way? And athletes, more often than not, it's we're more of like a, it sounds bad, but like a cattle call. Like, you wear a uniform, you wear a number. You're expected to keep your head down. You're expected to work. You're not expected to be loud. You're not expected to do all the things. Like, it's about winning for the team, sacrificing for the team. So when your voices are suppressed and the media can kind of control your narrative, big reason why we started Busting with the Boys. It's just like, you're expected to fall in line.
When's that show come out, and where can we find it?
Every Wednesday, Bussin' with the Boys. The audio comes out at 6 in the morning. YouTube comes out at 6 at night. Subscribe, rate 5 stars, do all the fun things. We're all for
Subscribe,
the
rate
boys,
5
man.
stars.
Yeah.
I actually do listen to. I don't, to be completely honest, I don't consume a lot of Barstool content, but I like your guys' stuff, and it's just because it's like a real conversation, like some perspective for listeners. I've talked to Will maybe twice in my life, and we were able to come in and have this conversation. Once was drunk in a bar in Nashville.
Yeah,
The
no
second
doubt.
time,
Yeah.
very drunk. And I got some stories about that trip, buddy, let me tell you. And the second time was right now. So check it out, even if, you think it might not be for you. You don't want to listen to football players. I promise you it's great. But I know you're busy. You're getting pulled around to go to a bunch of places. Before we get out of here, I was asking around the office some questions that people had for you. These are going to be some lowest common denominator questions,
Okay.
which I think that one about listeners might like. This might make a promo. Who fucking knows? These are actually mostly from Gaz, believe it or not. Stuff that
Gaz.
football players do in the locker room that would be considered gay outside the locker room.
Stuff that football players do inside the locker room. So we're talking about playing gay.
Oh yeah.
I mean, hey.
He's
Hey.
looking right at you. We're talking rat tails with the thing. What are we talking?
Oh, bro. Like, I mean, dude, we do the most, man. Like, I know in Nebraska, we it sounds so
This is
funny.
gonna
to
be-
say.
cut
Hey,
it, promo.
We talk about playing gay and shit like that. I mean, everything, man. Like, on Bustin' with the Boys, we've talked about the,
Just say it, Will.
Yeah.
You don't have to be uncomfortable, goddamn.
I know, right? Like, I just get all a little
You got
tight. Now, we've
clammed
just been
up.
talking about gay shit the whole time, and now I'm
Right?
nervous.
You're getting claimed up.
Talking about people's pieces. I would walk up and down the sideline.
People's pieces.
Yeah,
a
so
wrench, as they call it.
Yeah, a
that's
wrench. Yeah.
That's a cock for everyone
Yeah.
listening.
So
right
I
now.
would. There's this one time we had a walkthrough, and I'm walking up and down the sideline. I'm like, hey, I'm asking the guys
What team?
what percentage. I was on the Titans. So what percentage of guys you think would admit to checking out other dudes' pieces in the shower? And I would just go up and down.
33% of this room. I'll tell you that right now.
I would go up and down, and when we turn around, hey, come on with that gay shit, bro. Like, I'm just like, I'm just being serious. Like, you reacting like that makes me think that you've noticed the one or two. You know what I'm saying? Like,
You
have
check it
done
out. Though. Everyone checks it out in the shower.
Yeah.
right?
How do you not check it out? Like,
Who's got the biggest wrench? Have you ever
that
seen?
I've ever seen?
That's a spit and chicklets term. Wrench. Who's
Yeah.
got the biggest wrench you've ever seen?
Amir Abdullah.
Amir Abdullah. How
Yeah.
big are we talking here? I mean, you can air it out. Well, he's
I'm
not
talking-
listening to that.
He might, especially if you making a promo. Hey, come on, man. It might have its own birth certificate.
Jesus Christ.
Now
Now I was gonna go.
shout
the-
out Amir. Shout out Dula, man.
I was gonna. We had Lisa Ann on the show, and she said, weirdly, a friend of mine, and she said, she had, God, what's his name? John Sally had the biggest dick she's ever
John
seen.
Sally. I'll have to look it up.
Check it out.
Yeah,
It's on the
yeah, you know
internet.
what I
It's
mean?
very large. I was gonna go with smallest you ever seen, but we don't want to do that. I'm sure. you
O
don't want-
lineman.
O lineman.
O lineman.
White O
usually
lineman.
do. Yeah, white O lineman.
But
It
is that
usually
just
it usually just perks up right on the old sack.
But is
You know what I
that-
mean?
Is that
You
because
walk
the
in and be like,
body's
"Hey,
so big?
Yeah, you just be like, hey, it's a tough look, man. Like, after the playing days are over, you lose some weight, it'll get bigger.
It's a tough look, man.
Yeah, if you're having a bad, if you're having a small dick day, you're like, I'm gonna go stand next to the old lineman in the shower.
Is
You
that
know
how
what
it
I mean?
works?
Yeah, it's not like you want to stand next to the
Amir.
big dude. Yeah, you don't want to stand next
If
to
you're having an
Amir.
SDD, you go next to the OL.
Yeah.
Understood. Do you have a regular group of guys you shower with? Is there like
Ooh,
is there
that's
like
a good
groups
question.
of people that you like? Oh, I'm going to shower with. This is my buddy.
Yeah. I mean, the dudes you roll with that you're about to get lunch and stuff with, like, hey man, let's hit the showers. Back in Nebraska, shout out Amir again. Amir and I.
I almost just instinctually Googled his dick.
I know, right? Amir and I would be, hey, let's go catch a shower. Let's see. Thought we say the gayest shit, man. Oh my god.
Happy
but Amir,
Pride.
yeah, happy Pride. But yeah, you'd always shower with some people, and then you'd ask them. Everybody, football players, you got big backs. I don't know the last time I've been able to actually scrub the middle of my back. You have shoulder issues, you have labrum issues. I've had surgeries. Like, you can't really touch the middle of your back. So I'd ask the boys, hey, you guys want me to get your back?
The boys.
Yeah,
You'd ask the
that's what it's always the same thing. Like, how comp with that gay shit again. And you just be like, okay, man, I'm just trying to do you a fucking favor. You're welcome.
Does he ever get a little low? Maybe he goes in the crack.
No,
Maybe he
I never
scrubs it.
navigate down there. We're talking about me doing it.
Okay.
I've never witnessed an actual back scrubbing and then you're going down toward the crack. That might be a little up your search
Listen,
engine on
I gotta
Pornhub.
ask. I do have to ask. That's on a private browser history. Let me just say that. I'm thinking, what else could I ask you about the locker room? Well, Gaz do you ever get intimidated by a huge dick? That was another one. It's so funny when you ask
Hey,
all
what's
the
up with Gaz with these questions?
all the straight guys. Like, I had them. I was like, oh, I want to have like a semi-intelligent like conversation here, and I like asked around the office, and I immediately regretted it. Someone's like, who's got the biggest piece? Who's got this? What's up with this? Do you rat tail? Do you fluff it up? So this has been good. It's
Have
been
you
great.
ever been intimidated? That's so funny.
So that's
no,
a
you
no.
just say, good for you, man.
You acknowledge it.
Oh, for sure. I'd be, hey, Taylor, good for him. He'd be like, yeah, no doubt.
Okay, that's interesting. Acknowledge it. Very good. So Buzzing with the Boys comes out every Wednesday.
Yep.
You got comes out at 6 a.m. You got the YouTube at 6 p.m.
Yep.
Everyone, make sure you check that out. It's awesome conversation, and like I mentioned before, it's awesome to actually talk. I'm so excited for the name of this episode. I'm going to call it Gay for Play.
Love that.
And it's going to be good. So it's nice to have an actual football player in here to talk about the pulse of the locker room and where it stands in terms of having a gay player come out, especially during Pride Month. So, Will Compton, thank you very much for your time. You're off to your next show, and I'll talk to you soon.
I appreciate you, brother.